High in the misty mountains, where two villages face each other across a deep ravine, a love story blossoms. But love betrayed turns to hate, and sometimes the dead will not rest in peace. This story is a true story. It happened in a small village deep in the forest, according to the old people. Once upon a time, between two mountain peaks, there were two Hmong villages, Tsaab Tawm and Muaj, Zubij. In Tsaab Tawm village, there lived a gentle and beautiful girl named Tsaab Tawm, on the other side of the mountain pass. In Muaj Zub, there lived a young man named Nuj Sieg, who was famous for his gallantry and was the keeper of his family's precious ceremonial drum. In Kauj, Mame and Nuj Sieg were deeply in love. They went everywhere together to the fields, to chop wood, to work the fields like husband and wife. But behind Tsaab Mame's back, Nuj Sieg flirted with a girl in his village, Tsaab Kayab. He often spent the night with her when her parents were away. And then what had to happen happened, and Kauj Kayab got pregnant. The family and the village forced Nuj Sieg to take responsibility. With no way back, he married Kauj Kayab. But Kauj Mame was completely unaware. One hot summer afternoon, as the sun was fading behind the mountains, Kauj, Mame's aunt from Muaj Zub village, made her way to Tsaab Tawm village to borrow rice. While waiting, she stopped by the house to chat with the family and blurted out Nuj Sieg. The young man Kauj Mame had been thinking about day and night. Those unintentional words fell on the young girl's ears like a thunderclap from a clear sky. Nuj Sieg is married now, and I heard he's about to have a child. Kauj Mame's whole world collapsed. The heartbreaking pain made her unable to think. She immediately rushed to the next village, crossed streams, and walked through forests just to find answers. When she arrived at his house, her heart stopped. In front of her was the man she had sworn to spend the rest of her life with, now standing coldly like a stranger. He only uttered one sentence. "Why did you come here?" Hot tears fell down his gaunt cheeks. Kauj Mame knelt down, her hands trembling as she grabbed his shirt. "I don't need a title, I just want to be with you. Make me your second wife, just don't abandon me like this." But his eyes were still as cold as the first snow of the season. Without a moment's hesitation, Nuj Sieg turned away, leaving the girl in despair. The story quickly spread. The two families held a meeting to resolve the issue. The elders of the bride's family blamed and demanded justice for Kauj Mame, the girl who had devoted her youth to a promise. But Nuj Sieg remained firm in his decision, making up all sorts of excuses to shirk responsibility. Finally, under pressure, he only agreed to pay a so-called salt face wash as compensation, a way to repay their old friendship. On the way back, dragged away by his parents amidst the gossip of the villagers, Kauj Mame screamed in pain, his red eyes filled with resentment.
"If you leave me today, Nuj Sieg, then from now on, you will never be able to live in peace."
The curse echoed through the dark mountains and forests, like a betrayed soul screaming in anger. From then on, the world seemed to change. Strange things began to happen. After the fateful meeting between the two families, Kauj Mame no longer laughed and talked like before. She lived quietly. Her eyes were empty, soulless. Every day she sat alone by the window, her gaze far away towards Muaj Zub village, the place where her first love and all her trust were buried. One night, the rain was pouring down, thunder was rumbling, the sky and earth were as dark as her soul. Kauj Mame held a cup of water mixed with a handful of poisonous jungle leaves, something that the ancients used to end all suffering. She wrote a short line in charcoal.
"If you don't love me anymore, then let me love you in the other world."
She drank it all, locked the door, and lay still on the bed in the howling rain and the final pain of her life. When the parents returned from the fields, they called out to their daughter, but she did not open the door. They broke down the door and found Kauj Mame struggling, her face purple, her eyes rolled back. The mother cried out, holding her child in her arms, while the father immediately ran to call the neighbors. But when they arrived, she had stopped breathing. The whole village was in mourning. They dressed her in white and prepared to hold a farewell ceremony. However, a big problem arose. The Tsaab Tawm village had not held a funeral for a long time, and the drum used to summon and guide the soul had been eaten by termites. Without the drum, the girl's soul would be lost and unable to rest in peace. The village chief sent 2 strong young men to Muaj, Zubid, to borrow a drum. Ironically, the only intact drum belonged to Uje Sieg. Little did he know, it was for the funeral of his ex-lover. That night, as soon as it got dark, the villagers began to hear the steady sound of thump coming from the funeral home, but no one was beating the drums. At first they thought someone was testing the drum, but then everyone confirmed no one had touched it. Some children were frightened and hugged their parents. The old people just looked at each other, speechless. At midnight, when the ceremony had just stopped for a break, the horror happened. Nkoj Mame's body, which had been hung from the rafters according to custom, suddenly fell face down to the ground, making a heavy sound like meat being thrown. When the body was turned over, her face was purple, her eyes were wide open, and her tongue was protruding, abnormally long. The elder sternly reprimanded the 2 young men for not tying the body properly, but both swore that they had done as instructed. No one could explain why the rope had come loose, not stopping there in the middle of the night. An old man was sitting near the stove smoking, looking at the body as if hypnotized. He saw clearly. The girl slowly used her tongue to lick the blood flowing from the corner of her mouth. The swollen tongue, black as sunburned buffalo skin, reached out to lick the blood, greedily. He screamed, threw the lit cigarette into the fire, and ran out of the funeral home, urinating all over his pants. From that night on, no one dared to sleep in the funeral home. The sound of drums occasionally resounded in the quiet night. Some people said they saw the shadow of a young woman standing by the door, her hair loose, her eyes glowing red, her arms holding a drum, ... The ghost of Nkoj Mame began to return, but that was only the beginning of more terrible things. That night, the weather was unusually cold, even though it was the middle of summer. Around 1 a.m., while the whole village was still asleep, a young man who was keeping watch over the funeral was suddenly awakened by a chill that ran down his spine. He pulled the thin blanket closer to his body, but the cold still seeped into every crevice of his clothes, causing goosebumps to appear all over his body. Just then, from the corner of the house came the deep sound of drums. He paused, his ears listened, his eyes wide in the darkness. The sound was unmistakable, the sound of a funeral drum, but there was no one holding a drumstick. He cautiously turned his head to look up at the place where Nkoj Mame's body was hanging. In the flickering light of the oil lamp, a chilling sight appeared. The body was slowly moving. Its right hand, though still bound by rope, was touching the drum, beating each beat. The young man's heart seemed to stop beating. He sat motionless, unable to breathe. Cold sweat broke out all over his body. Suddenly, another young man who was sleeping nearby also woke up because of the noise. When he looked up, his eyes met that ghostly scene. Both of them looked at each other, then neither of them said a word, just shivered, huddled in a corner, hugging each other tightly, praying for the morning to come soon. The drum beat kept on beating, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, as if the ghost was trying to tell something through the sound. No one in the house dared to say a word. Even the wind seemed to have stopped blowing. When the sky was just getting light, everyone in the funeral home began to stir. They discovered that Nkoj Mame's body had changed color. His whole body was blue, as if he had been suffocated. His eyes were wide open, the whites of his eyes bulging out, as if they were about to fall out. The elder ordered the burial to be expedited that day. No one objected. Everyone just wanted it to be over as soon as possible. The drum was returned to Nuj Sieg's family shortly thereafter. But it didn't stop there. Even though it was no longer in the funeral home, the drum hanging in the middle of the Nuj Sieg family home continued to ring every night. At first, it was just a few soft notes. Then it became clearer, more regular, like a call to the spirit. That echo seemed to signal that Nkhuj Mame's soul was still not at rest. It was still dark outside, and the path in front of the house was covered in mist. Nuj, Sieg's mother, woke up early as usual and was lighting the fire when she heard light footsteps upstairs, where no one in the house was sleeping. She looked up and saw a girl in a brocade dress, standing hunched over, as if searching for something. Her long hair fell down, obscuring her face, but her familiar figure and outfit left her with no doubt. "Daughter-in-law, what are you doing up there so early?" she asked. But in response to her were footsteps in the yard. Then her daughter-in-law, pregnant, just walked in from the door with a tired face. "I just got back from the garden. I didn't come up, Mom." The mother was stunned. She turned around and went upstairs, but saw no one. Her heart was pounding, her throat was choked. It seemed like some soul had returned. Soon, other strange things began to happen. The drums began to beat again, though no one went near them. The family began to dream of a girl dressed in Hmong clothing, her face purple, standing by their bed, staring at them all night. No one dared to hesitate any longer. A shaman was called to the house. After examining the house and asking each person, he firmly stated, "Nkhuj Mame's soul has not yet passed on. She has returned because her promise has not been fulfilled, because her hatred has not yet cooled." The exorcism ceremony was carried out hastily. After the ceremony, the drumming stopped, and it seemed that everything was over. But at night, the wind whistled through the cracks in the planks. In the dead silence, a voice echoed from behind the attic wall.
"Mujtsi, come out to me, come with me."
Nuchseg heard it clearly, as if someone was whispering right next to his ear. From then on, he fell ill, did not eat or sleep, and his body became emaciated, only skin and bones. His eyes were lifeless, sometimes awake, sometimes unconscious, and he muttered Nkhuj Mame's name. The family panicked. No one they asked could help. Finally, his uncle, a famous shaman from another village, had to take Nuchseg away from the village that very night, to avoid being dragged away by the spirit. They went to a remote mountain area, where his shaman performed a ceremony to cut off the negative ties, changing his name to Yajpav, erasing all ties to the past. From then on, the house was quiet again. No more drums, no more whispers in the night. It is believed that Nkhuj Mame finally let go, after the person she once loved was no longer the same person. It is said that on nights when the wind whistles through the Tsaab Tawm gorge, one can still hear the sound of drums echoing back. That deep sound is a reminder of an unfulfilled love, an unsettled soul, and the consequences of betrayal. This story, according to the old men, is a true story. It happened in a small village deep in the forest. Although years have passed, the people here still whisper and pass it on, as a warning to the next generation.